What's up, guys? Welcome back to Warrior House DIY, and in this very special holiday shopping season video, we're going to cover the best Christmas presents you can get for the DIYer, the homeowner, or even the professional tradesperson in your life. Now again, this is a video that will last for the ages, but we're going to go ahead and make it fun because we've got Thanksgiving and Black Friday coming up and people are going to be out shopping. And so the number one question we get asked all the time is, what do you recommend for tools for somebody getting started in DIY, or even from a professional standpoint? What do you got in your tool bag that maybe I don't have in mind? Let's share some tips and tricks here. And so in this video, we're gonna get into every single one of them, but more importantly, I'm gonna leave links down below. And yes, full disclosure, those are commissionable links because all these products are available on Amazon. So should you decide to purchase from one of our links, just know that you will be helping to support the Warrior House DIY channel and community so we can continue to bring valuable videos to you and your family and friends just like we always do. As always, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let's jump into some of the most essential tools in the Warrior House Tool Go bag. We can spend a lot of money on all sorts of different tools and even find ways to rationalize those expenses to our spouses or business partners. But when it comes down to it, I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to woodworking and other projects. And so I like to have just what I really need and not fill the garage with everything else. I got a lot of stuff thrown out here on the table. And what is it really that we need to do when we're getting into DIY, home ownership, and woodworking? Well, as you'll see, there's a link down below in every single one of our videos to the Warrior House DIY Essential Tools. If you click that link, it'll take you to our website, which shows a list of tools that are carried in our Warrior House Go bag, our tool go bag, that we feel are essential to every single person who's doing home repairs, handyman work, or even work in a shop. And so going through a couple of those, what we think are the most essential, you're gonna find things on that list like the Klein 10-in-1 screwdriver. It's not just a screwdriver, but it's also got Torx bits on there. It's got square heads on there. It's got nut drivers built into it, which is great if you're doing some of your own HVAC work and you need to remove some of those sheet metal screws and things like that. The Klein 10-in-1 screwdriver, measuring tapes. There's a lot of different measuring tapes out there, and while they're all a little bit the same, they're a little bit different. So there's a couple that I recommend, and guys, to each is their own on this, but this video is about what I recommend. I'm gonna go with the fast cap all day long, and I'm gonna use two different kinds. One of these is just your simple 15-foot fast cap tape measure. It's dual-sided, so it doesn't matter which direction you're measuring from. You're gonna be able to see those numbers on both sides of it. It's got a built-in pencil sharpener if you're using a pencil versus a pen for marking. And as a bonus, it's got the white blank pad on here that you can write down your measurements. So we're cutting our boards and we know that we need 72 and 1/16 heavy. You can go ahead and write that on there and then erase it when you're all done. The second fast cap tape measure that I'm going to talk about is the flat one. It's kind of whippy and limp. What is that for? It's for sheet goods. I don't know if you can see that when we're on this table here, but it lays flat on the sheet goods when you're using, say, your track saw or even just a table saw to make measurements on plywood or any other MDF boards that you're using to make cabinetry. So it lays flat. You don't need to roll it over like you do a regular tape measure. What am I using to mark on these tape measures and the work pieces? I actually prefer a mechanical. We can all grab a good old-fashioned number 2 and sharpen it even in the tape measures. But with the mechanicals, they come with extra lead, they come with extra erasers, and I'm gonna keep those in an old screw container from this Spax brand, and I'm gonna throw that right inside of my tool bag, and I've always got enough lead there. So even if I break the pencil, drop the pencil, run out of it, sharpen it all the way down to the nub, I'm not gonna have to worry about that with a mechanical as much. But let's take a look at the rest of these components one by one that we feel are essential in this Warrior House Go bag. Now my go bag is set up for my regular carpentry and handyman jobs, so I might have a couple extra goodies to get out of the way, like my coping saw and pry bars, things like that. Although I do recommend that you keep those in your go bag. I always keep some shims, and I'm sure there's plenty of other fun stuff in the bottom. But let's get down to the actual Warrior House DIY go bag essential tool list. And really the biggest things that we can hit on in that are gonna be a couple basic electrical tools, Klein electric pliers for stripping wires back and twisting and crimping, as well as an electrical tester. I also recommend that you actually have a circuit tester on you that you can plug into the outlet and see if you've got any ground fault issues, things like that. The proximity testers are good. They will get you close, but again, they're not going to be as accurate if you've got a whole bird's nest of wires when you open up a ceiling fan, things like that. I've always got a mallet in there, aside from a hammer for the carpentry job. A small Stanley torpedo level. It's the perfect size. It fits right in the bag. It's got a magnet on one side. This works great when you're leveling your refrigerator or your stove, any other appliances around the house. You can throw it in your back pocket when you're on the go, just like you would with any of these other tools. Moving on, we're going to go into a set of pliers where we got a side cutter, an adjustable, a channel locks, as well as a needle nose, and then I always keep a vice grips in here. Vice grips can be used for so many different things. The biggest thing I like to use them for, check out some of the videos on the channel, is if you've got the Stanley with the rolled top head to it right there, it's great for rocking a nail right out when you need to pull nails. It works really well for that. We've covered our 10-in-1 screwdriver. A drywall punch saw, which is great for every homeowner to have, not just a handyman, but if you've got a patch that you need to do, you can punch this thing into the wall and you're not using your Sawzall, you're not using a power tool. You're going to feel if you get into some plumbing or something like that, and you should already have checked to make sure that you're not going to get into any electrical or plumbing, but this could definitely help reduce some damages if you're going blind into it. And speaking of portable saws, Milwaukee makes a fold-up handheld Sawzall blade holder, right? So this is going to hold a short blade. It'll fold all the way up just like a pocket knife would, but you can actually put the longer blades on it, so I also keep longer blades in there. And if you want to use this as opposed to a powered Sawzall, if your back's up for it, you can cut through studs all day long with the longer blades on it, but I think it's a great tool to have in the bag. Some of the extras that I have are going to be the gas sniffer and laser temperature gun if you ever need to know what the temperature is on things, depending on if you're working on HVAC or you've got maybe a plumbing application that's got some hot water involved or something like that. I always carry a Leatherman multi-tool in there as well. Scissors, putty knife, can't really go wrong, and I know a lot of this is going to seem like basics to so many people, especially if you already are a trade professional. Let's move on to the essentials that are never going to be left home without, which is going to be my nail sets. I've got the red, white, and blue collection of small, medium, and large, and that comes in a lot of handy. Sometimes with a cordless nail gun, the battery will start getting a little low on power and it won't drive that head all the way in, and you got to go ahead and finish her off. Blades, scrapers, and box cutters. I've always got a flat scraper in there, which is going to be great when you're cleaning up some caulk or things like that. And then the box cutter as well. I like to use an adjustable. This Stanley Fat Max one, we've got a link for this one that I've chosen because it's really quick to just change the blades in and out, and then you got a bunch of extra blade storage in the back side of it as well. I mean, who doesn't like reaching into their bag and finding a dull blade on their box cutter when they're about to start their day? The rest is just going to be kind of loose odds and ends. I keep zip ties, I keep extra box cutter blades, I keep a deck of playing cards. Why do I have a deck of playing cards in there? Go back and watch one of the videos where I show you how you can shim door hinges by simply folding over vinyl playing cards. They've got to be vinyl playing cards because then they're not going to compress like cardboard would and things like that, but they do get the trick done. And so whenever my kids play 52 pickup and it becomes a deck of 51, right in the tool bag for dad is where it goes. I keep a side pocket full of plumbing accessories, keep some fast tape in there. We've got the gray, we've got the yellow, depending on if we're using gas, we're using water, whatever it is. If you're using Shark Bite, I like to keep the Shark Bite prep tool in there as well. And I also keep a set of Shark Bite 1/2-inch caps that you're always going to see in the tool bag. And why is that? 1/2-inch caps, you guys cannot leave home without those if you are doing handyman work. You're working on a water line, you're in a toilet, you're under the sink, you find out you got to replace the valve, but you don't have one on you. Well, the Shark Bite's going to work on PEX on 1/2-inch, it's going to work on copper 1/2-inch. You can go and cap that off, get the water turned off, and go grab your valve, come back and remove that with the Shark Bite removal tool that is also in there at all times. The rest of it, like I said, it's just personal choice. Whatever odds and ends and flavor you're going to add to this. But let's get into some of the powered tools that are essential to all DIYer or even handyman or tradesperson, right? We've got a lot when it comes to the battery power tools that are going to be essential, but there is some powered ones. We're talking more about miter saws and table saws, so stick around for my recommendations on those, and let's move on. Many of you know by watching videos on this channel, my #1 cutting tool of choice is going to be a track saw. I do use this Wen track saw, as I've reviewed it numerous times in plenty of videos on this channel, but really because at the end of the day, it's lightweight, it's a good beat around saw. I can take it to job sites all day long and not have to worry about beating it up like an $800 Festool, because this one's ranking in right at about $165, $200 depending on how many tracks you get with it and things like that. And for the cost of it and the durability of it, you really can't beat that. So I'm using the track saw, I'm using the Wen track saw. I always keep the anti-marring dust extractor hose attached to that, so that when I'm cutting and it's running along the edge of my sheet goods, it's not gonna scratch up my plywood like maybe a shop vac hose might do. And again, links are down below for all the things that I'm talking about here. On to drills. I'm a rigid guy. What can I say? Milwaukee's great, DeWalt is great, Rigid's great. I think what it comes down to is what you start with is typically how you evolve out from there, and it's because of the batteries, right? About 20 years ago, I was working in a shop with a guy from my church who taught me pretty much everything I learned about woodworking and custom cabinetry, and he had DeWalt drills in his shop, and another buddy of mine had a Rigid drill. And after a few years of working together, I remember looking at the workbench one day after cleaning up and seeing like 6 DeWalt drills and 1 functioning battery, whereas my other buddy who had the Rigid drill with NiCad batteries had still the 1 single drill and 2 functioning batteries. And Rigid at the time was using the NiCads with the holes in the bottom of them so the air could blow through from the charger and cool them, and they were rapid charging. Rigid put lifetime warranty on their batteries back then, as they still hold to this day. I will tell you that using Rigids, probably for the last about 20 years, I have never had to replace a battery. But by buying one brand, you're using that same battery across all different tools, and we know that the majority of the cost is in the batteries. So I'm gonna go with Rigid. I prefer a drill and driver combo, and on that drill, I want it to have hammer drill capabilities so that if I'm doing any masonry work or anything like that, I can get into it, and the driver obviously for any kind of fasteners that I'm attaching. Nail guns. I don't care what brand you're using, I recommend having a cordless nail gun for the simplicity of being able to carry that thing in and out of a job site, or if you're a homeowner, for not having to drag your portable tank, 5-gallon tank around with you everywhere you go, and a 25 or a 50-foot hose and all your other guns. I do use a Grex 23 gauge pin nailer for a lot of my trim work, and with that, obviously, I'm dragging the hose around in the compressor for that. But for the majority of the work that we're doing, we can tack most of our work together with a 16 or 18 gauge cordless nailer and save our backs a lot from hauling stuff around and save a lot of time. Time is money if you're doing this for a living, and you guys know that. We'll talk about that in another subsequent video. Let's move back into measuring tools for a moment. In the shop, I'm always using Woodpecker measuring tools. I don't know if you guys have used these before, or if you use some of maybe the other cheaper knockoff brands. I'm gonna leave links down below for the ones that I specifically use. When it comes to the 1281 stainless steel and the 641 stainless steel, there's a combo set that they used to sell exclusively on their one-time tool releases. Now they're available on Amazon, and this is gonna be the 6-inch and the 12-inch. What's really sweet about them, obviously, is you got all of the indexing holes along them. If you can see that, you can drop your pencil in there and you can run your score line, whatever it is. I do this on plywood all the time, where I'll take a square and I'll rack my corner, run a straight square line, cut down the edge of it, clean edge, not a factory edge now, and then I'll take my measuring tool and I'll run my scribe line all the way down there if I've got to take 8 inches off or whatever it is. So I got an even parallel line, perfectly square, all the time. And then to carry around on job sites, typically in my tool belt, I'm gonna use their 641. It's just a simple 6-inch square, carpenter square. It doesn't have any of the indexing holes on it. It's durable and it's milled out of aluminum, and it's a fantastic tool to keep on you guys. That covers measuring tools. There's plenty of other Woodpeckers tools depending on what you're trying to do. They've got a tool for pretty much every job. If you want to buy a square gauge for your track saw, you can do that from them as well, or even for your drill press. They've got drill press bases as well. I encourage you to check out their website a little bit more. I'll leave links down below for that. Now let's get into some of the bigger tools. There's a lot of stuff covered obviously already in the Warrior House Go Bag with your essential DIYer tools and even job site tools, covering all of the power tools that we're using as far as drills and drivers, and sawzalls are great, multi-tools are great. Again, if you're using cordless, which I think most people are, at the end of the day, I'm going with Rigid on all those. But when it comes down to the bigger tools, we're talking about a miter saw and a table saw. There's a couple that I'm going to go ahead and just recommend that I prefer. When it comes to the miter saw, I'm using a rigid. If you want the absolute best dust extraction you can get, you're going to want to go with a Festool. But with the rigid, you're saving about $1,000 or more on that, and the dust extraction on it is actually pretty good. When it comes to a job site saw, there's a couple different ones that I recommend. One, again, rigid. Why do I keep saying rigid too? Because it's readily available at Home Depot as well as Amazon, and pretty much everywhere you go there's a Home Depot around the corner, right? So the rigid job site saw. But if you want the absolute best in the industry for safety, I cannot stress enough, you're going to want to go with the saw stop table saw. Whether you're using the contractor saw, the job site saw, or the cabinet maker saw. In every cabinet shop that I have ran or owned, I have always used saw stop. I can argue with guys all day long until we're blue in the face over whether that's the best saw for the industry. And at the end of the day, it is, in my opinion, because safety is far better than any tool. Guys, we're cutting materials at the end of the day and we're fastening them together. We can all build a cabinet and we can all sand and finish it. The saw stop saws do a great job. When it comes to job site though, it's all about the fingers.
Just a scratch.
I have kids, my two oldest are boys, they're using tools. I don't need them walking in the garage and getting curious and turning on the table saw without asking permission and actually running the risk of breaking their fingers. The worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to trip the brake on it, the blade is going to drop below the deck, they're not going to get injured at all, their pride's going to get hurt a whole lot, and their allowance is going to get hurt a whole lot because it's about $60, $80 to replace the brake cartridge on that plus the blade, right? So at the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and say saw stop is where it's at. Thanks for hanging around with us for the Warrior House DIY Christmas shopping special. Hopefully you've gotten some shopping tips out of this. If you have, give us a like, give us a subscribe, but more importantly, jump into those comments down below. Leave us a question. What tools do you want to learn more about, or do you want to see a review on? Maybe we could do one of those down the road. And as always, I hope that everybody has a very safe holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving, happy Black Friday shopping day. More importantly, Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. And a very safe time in your shop and with your DIY projects. JR from Warrior House DIY. I will see you in the next video. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, honey. The snowman's dusting off his hat, putting on the show.